Hey, what's going on with you? It's Ken Jones back here. Next installment of the iTechnicallyKan Power BI series, tutorial number 2. This is where we at. We're going to do a little bit more cleaning and transforming of the data. And this is going to be done in Power Query. Of course, where we left off with tutorial numero uno was this table view. Excuse me, examining those tables after we had pulled the data in. Remember, in activity 1 or tutorial 1, whichever you want to refer to it as, we downloaded Power BI, got it set up, changed a few of those settings, connected to our data source, imported some data, made a couple of little changes, and then saved that thing up. Hadn't jumped into any visualizations or anything like that. Now we're going to go ahead into the next step. Remember, a bunch of this front end stuff. And by front end, I don't want to confuse y'all because I'm not talking about the front end of Power BI, but the front end of visualizing your data. A lot of that time is going to be spent inside of Power Query. That's just what it is. You got to get things set correctly as you're working with it before you try to visualize it. So I guess I should say that a little different. You got to get things set up correctly before you try to visualize it. The data has to be clean and proper, or you're going to run into issues once you start building out some of your visualizations. So keep that in mind. Also, know that these tutorials in this series, these are more focused on just getting you up and started, getting you familiar with some of the interface. There's a ton of tools, and I am going to do deeper dives into these tools and how to use them to manipulate the data, transform it, and get it set up the way that you need it to get set up. And that's going to be done in much shorter pieces. Here, again, it's just about powering through, showing you how to get these different steps done. So if I don't jump off and go off the deep end in terms of explaining something, don't be too frustrated. I promise I'm circling back to get you understanding. So if there's things I point out like, oh yeah, that's a thing, and then I don't do anything about it, it's because I got something to handle later with you. Today, in this tutorial, we're going to get in here and play around inside of Power Query. We're going to go ahead and update a few things in terms of the columns, data types. We're going to go ahead and remove a couple of columns, and then we're going to take our sales data and we're actually going to combine those 3 sales data tables together. So we don't have to juggle through multiple. We can just deal with that single table and get it all stacked on top of each other. Stupid easy to do, and we're going to make it happen. So what I'm going to do is go ahead, click into the report view. Once I got that report view selected here in this home ribbon, go ahead and I'm going to click on the transform data button. Going to bring me into Power Query. All right, so yeah, I got my queries over here to the left. When working within this Power Query, getting your data set up, again, the less data that's being pulled, the better. If we look through these different, I'm going to jump down to the customer lookup because calendar lookup just has the one column. That's fine. Customer lookup here. I'm going to look through this table and see. There's email addresses. I don't have any use for email addresses in a report, so I can get rid of this. Let me see if there's anything else. These is useful. The income. Okay. And homeowner, birthday, name, we definitely want that. All right, so if I want to get rid of this email address column, all I do is come up to the top, right click, and I can choose remove. Now there is an option right under it, remove other columns. And what that does, if I was to go ahead and choose that, it would remove everything except for the email addresses. So there might be times when you need that. Another thing to think of is hold down shift and you can select multiple columns. So it could be a situation where it's like, oh, I just need birth dates, marital status, and gender. I can select those 3, right click, choose remove other columns, and it would get rid of everything else. But here I'm going to go ahead and right click on the email address, choose remove. Now that's out of there. And over here in the applied steps, I see that remove columns is a thing. So that just shows that that's remove columns. And remember, I can double click or actually right click and rename and say, let me see, removed email columns. Just a way to keep track. Do you have to? No. Is it good to know? Yes. All right. Now, looking here, this is perfect. Annual income. This is a number column I can see here. This is dealing with numbers. There is something you can do to help Power BI recognize that you are working with the monies, and that's clicking on that data type. And if you look right here with this little $sign, fixed decimal number, give that a click and look at that. Formatted like the monies. You don't get the currency symbol. That's something that can be done on the front end. But now I can see over here, change type is showing up in my applied steps. Let me make sure. Boom. All right. I'm going to look into product categories. That's good. Could come in here if I was being really particular. If you wanted to, you could click into these headers and add spaces in between those words. Not a big deal for me. Clicking into product lookup. Let me see. SKU, model name. Product size, style. So all of that looks like good information. I see there are two columns here with product costs and product price. Also set at fixed or decimal numbers, and want to change that to fixed decimal number. I'm going to update that. Go ahead and use this as a new step. So this pop-up right here is just saying, do you want to add this to the step that is currently on? But I want it to be its own step. So I'm going to go with add new step. Now I've got change type and change type 1 here. I'm going to click on product price and do the same thing. So now these are updated. Now I'm going to show you something really quick right here. I'm going to undo both of those change types, right? I can select, if I hold down shift, I can select both product cost and product price here. In this transform section, there's data type here, says any. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change this to fixed decimal number. And now you can see that it updated the product cost and product price. So that's doing just what we wanted it to. We've got the product subcategory. That's good. Returns data. Good. Territory. Perfect. Now, I mentioned we've got 3 sales data tables here, 2020, 2021, and 2022. Do we need all 3 of these as separate files? No. Why? This is all the same information, right? All the same columns. The only thing that changed was the year. So combining these by stacking these on top of each other, where it's 2020 followed by 2021 followed by 2022, it's all in one place. We don't have to jump to different tables, which is going to be great, especially later, working with DAX calculations, creating measures and so on. One table reference. We don't have to keep in mind what year and all that. A lot easier. Now there's 2 ways to combine tables together inside of Power Query. You've got a merge queries options and append query. So both of those tools are set up for you to combine data together. What's the difference? Merge queries, when you use that, the 2 tables that you're merging together have to share a common column. So let's say you got 2 tables right here. You've got a table with column A, B, and C, and then another table with C, D, and E. Those can be merged together based on column C because it's the same in both of those. So those link together, and then you end up with a table that has column A, B, C, D, and E. So that's for tables that are going across in rows, right? Whereas append, you're actually stacking these tables on top of each other. So they have to have the same columns because these are being stacked on top of each other. So these are going up and down, whereas your merge is going left to right or right to left. So with that, let's go ahead and click on append queries, making sure that you do have sales data 2020 selected. So I do want to make that point. Sales data 2020 in the queries, that's what's selected. So I want that to be the top. If I were to select 2022, then it can get a little wonky. It can still work with sorting afterwards, but just starting with that sales data 2020, this append window pops up. It's by default set at 2 tables. We're connecting 3 tables. So I'm going to click this radio button to 3 or more. Now you've got your available tables and your tables to append. Right now, the current table that's selected is already over in the append section. So I'm going to select 2021, sales data 2021, add that, sales data 2022, add that. Now all 3 tables are here. The Trace Amigos are ready to go. So OK button will be pressed now. Not much looks like has happened here. It's not like the table got all wonky, But if I come now to this order date column and I click this drop down arrow, if I sort descending, notice now this first row here is June 30th, 2022. Now, if I go back to ascending, it's going to start at January 1st, 2020. So now it has all of those years there inside of this one table. Now, with that said, over in the properties pane, we're going to update this name. We're going to call this sales data combined. All right. And then I'll hit enter and I'll see it updates over here in the queries pane. But now I'm going to show you something. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to click close and apply. Don't worry about this error. It's nothing. I'm going to go ahead and I want to come to the model view. Now we see here, we've got our sales data combined, but we still are seeing our sales data 2021 and sales data 2022 and the same thing over here in our data pane. Since we already combined everything into the sales data combined, we don't need to be seeing 2021 and 2022. So it's a quick way to make sure those don't get loaded in to the report. So I'm going back into Power Query. And what I want you to do, simply right click on sales data 2021, uncheck enable load. I'm going to click. This is just popping up telling you, hey, if you got any visualizations going and this table, a field from this table is being used, and it's going to break. We don't have any visualizations, so that's not a possibility. Sales data 2022, unchecking enable load, and click continue. Now I'm going to go ahead, close and apply that. Should think for a moment and give an update. Now it removed those two. So those are still there in Power Query. If we wanted to load them back into our data model, it's just as easy as going back, right clicking, making a check mark next to that enable load, and they will reappear. But for now, as this stands, we are good to go. So again, those were just a couple of quick little pieces in terms of working in Power Query and doing some extra cleaning and transforming of the data. Just remember to always have your data types ready. Make sure to remove any columns that you don't need or want in a report. And with that, we're going to get up out of here for this tutorial number 2. Tutorial number 3 is going to be actually establishing relationships between these different tables, because we need these to have relationships, be connected on those key fields, so that we start creating these visualizations. Data is running into the visualization the way that we need it to. So with that, I'm up out of there. Kan Jones. Make sure you click the like, the follow, the subscribe, the bell, the notification, all the things, whatever platform you're on, and it hits in terms of the word that I just used. That means make an action. Follow me, Mr. iTechnicallyKan, taking you from to. You said it in your head. I know you did. All right, I'm up out of there.